Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who is listening to JPEG Mafia for the first time. Now listen, I've heard JPEG Mafia. He's appeared on a lot of different albums that I've reviewed, and I've even listened to his songs in the past. He made a song about wanting Morrissey to die, and I'm a big Smiths fan, so I actually kind of agree with that in a lot of ways. But I've never really sat down and listened to his music. I've always known that I should. I've always understood that he was important, that he was some kind of very great artist in the underground alternative hip-hop world and maybe even the mainstream hip-hop world, but I just haven't done it. But listen, I really am a professor of French. I really am not a music critic, right? This is my hobby. And so I like having these reasons to get into something. Now, this is probably a really bad jumping off point because I'm reviewing EP2 with an exclamation point. EP1 came out a couple months ago. I listened to a couple tracks. It was a busy week, so I decided not to review it. I probably should have. I probably could have. I liked it well enough, but you know what it was? I was too daunted. I am daunted by JPEG Mafia. I don't understand his name. Why is he called JPEG Mafia? That doesn't even sound like an alternative rapper's name. It doesn't sound like a mainstream rapper name. It doesn't sound like anything. I wasn't able to approach it. I didn't know what it was. So really, I was afraid of talking at all about JPEG Mafia because if I talked about him at all, you, the viewer, would be like, this guy doesn't know anything. So, as I like to do, I will tell you right now, my ignorance is profound. Which means more than just I'm really ignorant. It means there is something important in my ignorance. I suspect, and listening to this album has confirmed, that JPEG Mafia is an artist in the true sense. Okay? By that I mean a real artist. Everything they do is representative of their art. Okay? You take a Picasso from 1905 and you compare it with a Picasso from 1973 before he died, and yes, they're very different. Different approach, different techniques, different colors. But they're all representative. Jesus is King and 808 and Heartbreak by Kanye are both equally representative of Kanye. They are all the real Kanye. Now, if you don't believe that, that's just because you don't actually understand Kanye as an artist, and that's okay, many people don't. But my theory is this. Here I am, just some guy. I'm putting off making a lesson plan for teaching my students about Tartuffe. Here I am, I'm listening to this music, and I am going to listen to EP2 and treat it as the only JPEG Mafia that I've ever paid attention to. What will I learn about this artist? What will I discern from this experience? Will it end up being as representative as I feel it probably is? So, let's get into it. First of all, he does everything. You look at the credits, he does everything. He even mixes everything, which means it's not even him doing everything by himself. It's him doing everything by himself, completely by himself, not with some guy in the studio. So it's as personal as, bedroom pop, but it's hip hop. And at times it's very hard hip hop. Although for the most part, this album is quite soft. A lot of synthesizers, 808 sounds, but nothing's ever very simple. Everything kind of builds and develops. It's kind of sing-songy, there's a lot of auto-tune, but it doesn't feel like he's using it because he wants to sing. It just feels like it's a different sound that he wants to achieve. Everything develops, every song has some extra part. Every once in a while there'll be something where you hear it and you just want to, you're like, what is that? Can we take that little nugget and just build a whole song on it? Could we please do that? But he doesn't. He just lets it go. Lyrically, it seems as though his primary theme is being uncompromising. He makes all of his work, and he's very proud about owning his work, right? This is a big thing that's happening right now, where a lot of artists are talking about not owning their own work, and JPEG Mafia, according to himself, owns his music completely, owns the publishing, and makes everything, which makes him truly independent in a way that Kanye isn't, right? That's why Kanye is so upset about people owning his masters, right? More than that, he's uncompromising at his anger at white people. Very uncompromising. Very willing to take the brave stance of making white people uncomfortable. Making this white person uncomfortable, okay? I spend a lot of time, I think a lot about race relations, okay? This album makes me uncomfortable. He makes me uncomfortable. He makes me feel bad. That's what you can do when you're independent. You can risk, especially if you're an alternative rapper, making a lot of your audience quite uncomfortable. But I think this is what's important, you know? If you're a white person and you're not uncomfortable, you're just not paying attention. You're just not. You're not understanding history. You're not understanding the present, but more importantly, you're not understanding how history impacts the present. If you are a white person and you are not uncomfortable about the systematic racism from which you benefit, then you are just not paying attention. You are just not alive. You are floating on the earth, okay? You're like a baby who thinks that food just comes from nowhere, okay? You're just incapable of understanding the reality of the existence that you live in. And rap music, when it can make a lot of its white audience aware of this and uncomfortable. But this album doesn't settle for, you know, Black Lives Matter. It doesn't settle for like, okay, only systematic racism. It really does talk a lot about the way that systematic racism benefits me, Mr. Well-intentioned guy who likes hip-hop and participates in Black Lives Matter marches and still has the signs getting covered in snow out front, you know? Me, who created a hip-hop minor at the college that he works for, but who in no way, so, you know, I do not represent the college on this channel. I'm an individual, please keep that in mind. But still, you know, even me, Mr. Good-willed white guy, he makes sure that I am uncomfortable. And that is an important thing, which I know art needs to keep doing. Only starting from that place of being uncomfortable can we take that history that informs the present and move towards a more equitable future, right? So let's be uncomfortable. Unfortunately, he also seems to rap a lot about guns and gun brands. This I don't quite understand, like Kel-Tec and Kimber. I don't really understand this. I guess it's sort of like his way of trying to show that he's tough, but it's weird. It doesn't quite fit in with the rest of it for me, but I don't know, maybe he just really likes guns. Apparently he is a veteran. Apparently he actually served in the Middle East, so maybe that has a part to do with it as well. As far as I can tell, he's the only rapper that I know of who served in the Middle East, so that definitely sets him aside. I like that he references, if you look up his lyrics on Rap Genius, he says that he put in the lyrics himself because he's tired of them messing it up. I like that. I like that he calls himself Peggy. I think that's very funny. We'll get into some of the sort of gender and sexuality later on. And also, he just has a lot of clever lines, right? Like, a lot of his lyrics are just clever, you know? Are you triggered or are you just weak by design? I put pause on a N-word on a person like Eve, referencing the rapper Eve who had paw prints tattooed on her chest. I'm in a different world like Kyrie Irving, right? Who's a flat earther. Just these kind of interesting, fun, neat, kind of cute lyrics. Sometimes he even gets really nerdy, okay? I don't know if alternative rap has to be nerdy, but I do know that most alternative rap is nerdy. I mean, he doesn't just like talk about the video game Metal Gear Solid. He references Hideki Kojima, the creator of the game. Like I knew that name because I've studied video games. Like, whoa. Like, he references Duffman from The Simpsons. He references like a very specific porn star and something to do with that history. So he's able to kind of go all over the place, where he's able to make people uncomfortable, be uncompromisingly proud in his independence, be uncompromisingly angry at white supremacy that still exists in our country, while at the same time talking about Metal Gear Solid. So I'm going to go through the album track by track. My first JPEGMAFIA album. The first track is called Last Dance. And the way I would describe, I'm just going to go instrumental, and then lyrics. You know what? This will be my stamp. This will be my homework. Just have a listen to this song. All of the songs are very representative. None of these songs particularly is super different than the other. So have a listen to Last Dance by, follow the link up here and then come back, by JPEGMAFIA. To me, it sounds like the kind of music they play in the back of an aquarium. These kind of like floating, nice synthesizer sounds. The first line is whoa with like an auto tuner. It sounds a lot actually like Kid Cudi, like the Kid Cudi, whoa, which made me a little bit scared for the rest of the album. But that kind of went away. There's this beautiful part in the second part of the song where these horns come in, this horn sound, synthesizer horns come in, and it's this example of his production style, which is very subtle, but really rewards close listening because it's just really nice. And then he boosts up the 808 bass on this at the same time, and it's really rich. And there's no real structure to the song. It's not like verse, chorus, whatever. It's just kind of like blah. And a lot of the album is like that. It's just kind of like blah. We see a lot of the anger at the white power structures. When I speak to a pig, I'm Biden. Kind of a funny line. Ducking these crackers, feel like Bin Laden. So, which is interesting, right? Because if he actually served in the Middle East, one of his goals was to destroy Osama. Well, one of the stated goals by the United States government was to destroy Al-Qaeda and Bin Laden. And so actually putting himself in the position of glorifying Bin Laden as someone who is successful at avoiding being killed by white people, by white Americans. It's an interesting idea. You see what I'm saying about this density? Like the richness to that line? Like an Iraq war veteran talking about being like Bin Laden? Okay? I mean, you know, people didn't come back from World War II, right? Saying like, you know, I'm like Hitler, right? Like, anyways, it's very rich. It's very interesting. Even references, trust fund money can't buy it. Again, references to trust funds are, in and of themselves, an attack on the white power structure because it's through trust funds that a lot of the generational wealth that has been deprived to the African American population exists and keeps the power structures in place. And he just throws it off as a line like that. This is a very subtly militant album, right? Like, maybe that's why it's so interesting to me, because it doesn't, you know, he's not sitting there with a fist up. The album cover is like him in a car, and there's like a woman behind him. It seems like it was not a very planned album cover, which I think is on purpose. You know, it's not overtly militant, but it seems to be baked in to his whole worldview that comes through here. Track 2 is called Intro. Oh, by the way, everything has an exclamation point. I don't know why. Young people these days, they put exclamations in everything. Do you know how often, as a college professor, I have to tell my students not to put exclamation points in their essays? Like, no, your thesis should not have an exclamation point, just in case you're a college student out there. Anyways, the second track is called Intro. I don't know how that is. I don't know if he's just being goofy. But here it's like the horns from the second part become the main part of this. It's 44 seconds long, but it's talking about being like a negative refugee. It's a theme about being a refugee. I don't know if he is a refugee. But then at the end, there's this awesome drum line with like actual drums and this great, like really funky line on a ride cymbal. And this is where I'm talking to you about, like, you hear it and you just want to grab it and say, hey, Peggy, Mr. Mafia, sir, could you turn this into a whole other song? But he just gives you the taste and then he backs off. And then you have to just imagine what it is. And then it ends with a crazy clap at the end. Why doesn't he use this drum sound more? I don't know. Next track goes seamlessly from the last one. Fix Yourself. Fix Yourself. Very super soft song with sweet synthesizers, some weird sounds in the back, kind of attacking sounds, cool like snare rolls in the chorus. I'm telling you, like, it's clear that he made this album quickly, okay? I don't think that he made this album over months and months and months and years, focusing on every sound, making sure it's exactly perfect. But there's enough complexity in here that it shows a level of artistry that goes beyond just like, hey, I'm a weird, wacky indie guy, and I'm just gonna throw something out there and you're gonna buy it. Especially the usage of bass throughout this song, Fix Yourself, is just great. Now here's a whole different thing. Okay, so he opens up the whole track saying, I wanna rub it, baby. And then in the chorus, he says, I love my babies like I love my husbands. I went from nothing to sluttin'. I don't think he's making a confession or a declaration of being bisexual. But he is definitely writing a line which is intentionally interpreted that way, or that can intentionally be interpreted that way. He even later says, I love my baby like Trump loves Putin, okay? Like, he's saying that he loves his baby the way a man loves another man, right? It's a very interesting line. I don't think that this is what he's trying to do. What I think he's trying to do is show that he is so tough, that he is so interesting and cool and independent, that he can throw out lines like this, which might imply homosexuality or bisexuality, and have it not even mean anything. It's just part of his arsenal. When I think about who he reminds me of in pop culture, and this could just be because I read, I think on Wikipedia, that he's from Baltimore. That's why I got Edgar Allan Poe back there. He's from Baltimore, and you know, a lot of rappers like to reference the figure of Omar from The Wire, right? Because everyone wants to be Omar. No one wants to be just a guy who just sells drugs and you know, serves in some kind of weird hierarchy, because that show's all about hierarchy and its flaws. Everyone wants to be the cool outsider who robs the bad guys and is totally on the outside and doesn't play by the rules. And that's kind of how JPEG Mafia feels to me. This album feels to me like he, without having to say it, he seems to be trying to sort of play this Omar role of just being ridiculously badass, totally on the outside, and not even caring what people say. Like, not like whatever it is you could say about him, saying that he loves his husbands, he doesn't even care. I don't know. This is a weird reference. I'm not actually saying that this is what JPEG Mafia is trying to do, but I am saying that like a lot of rappers reference Omar. Like, you're not Omar. Like, you're just not that cool, right? But he could actually make a claim to be that cool and be that far on the outside. Speaking of nerdy references, white guy references The Wire while reviewing a rap album. Yeah. I can't help it. I am who I am, you know? I try to be honest with you. That's what I thought. There you go. Feel free to make fun of me in the comments. All your favorite reviewers are cornballs. Kel-Tec is the name of the next song. I think it's a gun company. What's cool about this is it opens up with like when you call the Veterans Affairs number, right? So if you're a veteran and you need health care or whatever it is, or you need help, or whatever it is, it opens up with the hold line. Like, thank you for calling. Did you know you can get the services at www.va.gov, right? So it's interesting here, kind of putting this bigger context in himself as a person who has this other experience. And then the album ends with, all representatives are assisting other veterans. So it shows, again, this is a great political statement about the way that veterans are mistreated and they're not cared for and they just have to be put on hold, just like I'm put on hold if I have to put an insurance claim with State Farm or whatever, right? But if this is somebody who went and served our country and tried to kill bin Laden, who is ducking him, right? The production on this track is fascinating. It may be my favorite production on the album. These keyboards are just blaring over this sloppy drum loop that develops with like a kind of sloppy real drum sound as well. And then the outro is like a little ditty on a keyboard. You should listen to the last 30 seconds of this song in particular, Kel-Tec by JPEG Mafia. Last 30 seconds. It reminds me of back in the late 90s when I would listen to today's hottest hip-hop and R&B stations, Jammin' 94.5 in Boston. I would listen to Top 40 radio exclusively to hear songs that were produced by Timbaland, exclusively to hear the last 45 seconds where he was doing something cool with the production points. My buddy Brad and I would just drive around, we'd be like, ooh, that new Aaliyah song is on. And we listen to the whole song and it's fine, and we just wait for the end. You know, like that feeling you get when you listen to good hip-hop production where you just go, damn! This does that, and it's really nice to hear. On the whole track, he seems to be, it's mostly about his pride and his outsider status. I don't need industry praise, vision distorting, surviving off cosigns, on my credit, keep blocking up the stage. N-words mad because I'm black and I'm hostile, crackers say I'm pretty and paid. You know, again, very consistently referring to crackers. I can't believe my talent brought me fame. You can't believe I created a lane. Very much it's clear that he's very proud of the fact that he has created a lane. Oh, this video is now longer than the album, by the way. It's a 17-minute album, very dense. You should have a listen. Rappers can't do what I do because I own all my shit. And I do all my shit, and most all y'all can't relate. When Peggy hop in the booth, he get paid. You hit the booth, bitch, you know you a slave. You know what you signed, you know you don't save, you know you a dub, won't ease all the pain. So really just emphasizing this and this independence that he has that so few people have, right? Next track is called This One's For Us. I don't know who the us is, but it's very nice because it has reggae ad-libs sort of in the background all the way throughout. Almost like a lullaby sounding keyboard line. In the second verse, there's like this cool keyboard line jumps in. It almost sounds like a Daft Punk throwaway line. A very catchy chorus. Very uncompromising, again, about racism and systematic control of white supremacy. Ink dry, crackers took the whole pie, gave you a fraction, cut it out, smut it out, pistol poke you play with passion. It's a whole new world, but looks like my map loaded first, y'all lagging. Which is my son plays a lot of video games with maps. And I like this idea that it's a whole new world. Like in video games, if your world loads first, you have an advantage because you can actually see it. Again, this sort of like nerdy, cool side of him. White writers want to paint me as edgy, can't handle the facts that I'm rapping. So, I am a white writer. I am not painting him as edgy. I don't think he's edgy. I think he's angry. And that's fair. Fair. That is a very valuable position to be in. Later on in the song, he actually talks about being a veteran. I think I'm a killer, came back from Kuwait, and these N-words looking like targets now. And you N-words ain't N-words, you just became N-words because N-words is making profit now. Interesting, you know, there's this idea of like, there's a lot of questions of sort of black identity and authenticity that go throughout this album as well. Like what makes a black person really black versus performing blackness, which is a topic which I have no expertise on and can't really speak to, but I can say that it's an interesting topic to bring up. White boys scared of the peg in private but post in their black squares, so you know the Black Lives Matter thing. And then he goes even further. I'm black, beautiful, and damn I'm gifted. You just being white gave you that position. You're not the shits, you're not that good at business, you vague with your threats, I'm direct with my pistol. So this whole idea of you being white got you your position, it's just a thing that, like I said, it makes me uncomfortable because I have to recognize that even though I worked very hard to get what I have in life, and I have, I've worked very, very hard. I've worked very, very hard to get from third base to home. But being born white gave me so much access and so much privilege that to deny it is obscene. And he pushes that into my face and makes me deal with it. That's not edgy. That's accurate. Not even angry. Let's not say he's angry. Let's just say he's accurate. Okay, Panic Room, the most avant-garde beat. I was sort of expecting this album to be all super wacky, like what's he doing? But for the most part, the album's like a lot of like auto-tune and kind of like soft, easy to listen to stuff, which I imagine is kind of part of his thing, is that you never quite know what he's going to do. But this has kind of like a beepy, arpeggiated beat and swirling synthesizers and kind of a staccato beat. He talks about doing Kegels, like him doing Kegels, which are exercises that women do to strengthen their pelvic floor. But it's a boasting track. It's just the whole thing, just a quick and cool song. The album ends with basically a full R&B song, Feed Her. I don't even know if there's any auto-tune, or if there is, it's very, very light. Kind of singing, very subtle, kind of flute sounds, like a very, like, it sounds like a real, actual stand-up bass. Maybe it's a synthesizer, you know, sampler. And then the end, some like bell and a guitar sound. And it sounds like it's a guitar it's actually playing. It seems like it's almost a sex song at points, and then also about how weak other rappers are. It's kind of an odd ending to the album, but the whole album itself is quite odd. So there you go. Please tell me if you are a JPEG Mafia fan, if you stan Peggy. I regret saying that. If you are a big fan of JPEG Mafia, you don't necessarily need to tell me where do I go next. But if you want to like write something about how this fits into his oeuvre, you know, how does this fit into his work, what, like, that would be good. You know, that would be interesting, because I'm on board now. And everything that JPEG Mafia does from here on out, I'll be right here talking to you about it. But I'm starting here, okay? I'm starting in the middle of, I'm starting 20 minutes into the movie. Okay, well, for next time, for Joe Cool, and for this other book up here, which I put there on purpose, it says Putin's Russia, because there's a reference to Putin, but I couldn't get it on camera along with those other three things. There's the camera.